Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Post-holiday time and winter are tough enough for many, but the continued restrictions due to the pandemic and the barrage of unsettling news have led to a rise in mental health concerns for a majority of Vermonters. Catherine Burns, a doctorate psychologist and the clinical consultant for COVID Support VT, has her hand on the pulse of how the pandemic continues to affect our state of mind. Welcome back to Across the Fence, Kath.
Thanks for having me, Fran. I'm glad to be here.
So let's begin with a look at the Kaiser Family Foundation report on the impact of COVID on our mental health. Tell us a bit about the report and how mental health may have changed over the last 10 months.
I'm happy to do that. So the Kaiser Family Foundation regularly polls adults in the United States about a variety of issues, and they added questions about the pandemic to understand how people were faring in the spring. And they asked one particular question, which is whether or not you've been negatively impacted, whether or not your mental health has been negatively impacted by the pandemic. And in March, when they asked that question, 32% of people said that it had. When they asked the question again in July, that number went up dramatically to 53% of adults saying, yes, it's negatively impacting your mental health. And we're expecting that number only to rise.
Oh, that's really dramatic. And are there particular populations that you're finding also have enhanced risk? So half of us are concerned, but who's really at risk now?
You know, actually, Fran, it's a long list, and many of your viewers are going to find that they're going to be in one or more of these categories. So quickly, you know, if you have a pre-existing mental health, substance use disorder, or physical condition, if you have a trauma history, if you have an intellectual or developmental disability, if you're a caregiver of anybody, if you're a person of color, first responder, a child or a youth, if you live in poverty or with economic stressors, or if you live alone, or if you're an elder.
So here's living alone, 47%.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And what's interesting is when they ran this study, they compared people on the same question who lived alone to those who didn't. So nearly half of people who lived alone said, yes, this has a negative impact on me, but the number for people who did not live alone was only 37%.
Wow. And also certainly elders, 65 and up, also quite high. Isolation and fear about, you know, the pandemic is more challenging and risky for them.
That's exactly right. And we know that elders tend to underreport. So it's highly likely this number is an underestimate. But yes, being alone, being fearful of the physical impacts significantly contribute to their feeling very vulnerable in terms of their mental health from the pandemic.
Right. So the statistics you shared certainly reveal that people living alone and the elderly are vulnerable. But disturbingly, farmers are really struggling at 66% reporting issues that they're having. What's going on here?
Well, I actually was really pleased to see that the American Farm Bureau Federation was asking questions about this, and they started to poll farmers, rural farmers and farm workers around the country starting in 2019 around questions around mental health. And then in this past year, they started asking questions specific to COVID. And the question that you're seeing here on the screen is 2 out of 3 adults of farmers or farm workers indicated that the COVID pandemic was negatively impacting their mental health. And this likely is higher for them because they already had pre-existing concerns about finances, fear of losing their farms, an uncertain future, and just the state of the economy in our country has a direct impact on their functioning.
Right. So this is a statistic nationally, but it's also of real concern here in Vermont.
Absolutely. It was a poll of 2,000 rural farmers and farm workers, and we certainly fall in that category here in Vermont.
So what can we do to manage and support our mental health?
So I always worry when people see these numbers, they think, oh, we're doomed, this is horrible, when in fact, knowledge is power. And if you know you're at an at-risk group, well, there's things you can do to feel better. And we know there's some basic steps. And one is to spend some time in some basic good self-care, which we'll talk more about in a moment. Really get good, correct information. Make sure your sources are solid. Psychosocial supports is a fancy way of saying connect with people you care about regularly, and then see if you can get the resources you need for other things.
Right. And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So if we were to look at someone's daily wellness plan, maybe they could put that next slide up. There's basic steps to this, and it's easy to talk about, but hard to remember. So you can actually download this plan from our website if it helps you to have a checklist. One of the most important things to do is to take a break, and that can be a 5-second break where you just allow your mind to stop and stop thinking about everything that's happening in the world. That's actually incredibly helpful. Eating well is imperative. You just function better. You'll handle the load better if you've eaten well, regularly, and well-balanced meals. And if you're a person who's food insecure, there's resources out there to help you with that. You want to exercise regularly, and by that I mean get outside and walk, get outside and be in the sun, particularly in the winter when we have less light. It's pretty important to expose yourself to light during the day. And you want to follow a regular sleep schedule because that just helps you to just function better every day. You want to connect with family and friends outside your home, ideally every day. That could be by phone, by Zoom, by text, it doesn't matter. Over the fence, if that's safe for you. Monitor your substance use. Pay attention to when you're reaching for whatever substance it is that might be in your home, and be aware of why you're doing that. You want to stick to your existing treatment plans for any health conditions you have. That includes mental health, substance use, or physical health. And this sounds really simple, but you want to do one thing from start to finish every day. So you have a feeling of, I did that. And then the last thing, which is really important, is to do something kind for someone else every day. This does not have to be major. It could be a phone call, it could be holding a door, it could be dropping off a meal, but that will in turn make you feel much better.
It's a brilliant list, Kath. That's really great for all of us to work on those things. And then what are the clues that someone's really struggling with mental health issues and maybe needs to go a little bit further, or maybe you talk to them about a daily wellness plan and some of the tips there? What do you look for?
Great. Yeah. So generally, the rule that I follow is that if this list persists for 1 or 2 weeks, then it's time to do something. So on this list, you're going to see some clues. One is if someone you're talking to is talking a lot more about being worried about being healthy or worried about their well-being. If you're noticing changes in their sleeping or eating patterns that persist, we've really seen changes in kids' sleep, kids' eating, because I work with kids. Somebody who's persistently having a hard time concentrating, and I would say most of us are having a hard time with that because it's just so stressful right now. If people's health problems or mental health conditions are worsening, a lot of people are experiencing more symptoms. And then if you're finding that someone you care about is using substances more or in response to their stress, then it's time to do something about it. But again, 1 to 2 weeks persisting with these things, it's time to start asking questions.
Right, and then what can we do? I mean, Vermonters are stubborn and self-resilient, and so what can we do to help those we care about that might be in trouble?
Yep, the first step is to simply is to reach out. It's okay to do that. If someone doesn't want to talk about it, they'll tell you they don't want to talk about it. You want to start first by modeling, encouraging self-care. So if you're a parent, you model for your child how to take good care of yourself and encourage that in them. You want to talk about what you see, label it, and ask how you can help so that you can just really be concrete. I'm noticing you're not sleeping well. How can I be helpful? You can help that person reach out to their healthcare provider. A lot of farmers prefer to work with their healthcare providers. That's great. Start there. You can seek support from the mental health providers, and they're kind of stuck in a lot of places. So they're in schools. You can find them in employee assistance programs. Vermont Care Partners has a system of agencies around the state that all have numbers you can call to try to get services and supports. And there's a variety of community and private providers that can be helpful. If you belong to a faith-based community, the leaders there are absolutely invested in trying to be supported. And then communicate with people's family and friends and create a network of support for that person. It really can be helpful.
And there are some major resources that you can reach out for that are for, these are more on the emergency side, but some might be intermediary.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is. And I think we had a slide with some of them up there. That's great. So the first one is, great starting point is to call Vermont 211. Anyone can call that, and that's a gateway to a variety of resources, both for mental health, physical health, and just economic, food, etc. I highly recommend people call that. If you're concerned about someone's substance use, the number for Vermont HelpLink is up for you to see. You can call them and ask questions to connect with a substance use provider. And then we have here on the screen the number for the National Crisis Text Line that people can text 24 hours a day to get a response if you have concerns about someone's emergent mental health needs, if you're really concerned about someone's safety.
Well, and you can, through COVID Support VT, which is a FEMA program that you're basically in charge of for mental health, there are counselors there at 211 that you can call. So just quickly, a couple minutes left. What is available for us from COVID Support VT?
Yeah, so our website has a lot of great information. I encourage people to visit it. You can call our counselors between 8 and 8 every day, and they will do everything from provide in-the-moment support to they're happy to help you connect with a friend if you'd like. If you just want to connect with a group, they'll help you do that. We provide wellness groups at a scheduled time you see on the screen, but we also set them up upon request. And there's referrals. We can help people get connected to Vermont Care Partner agencies, community agencies, and beyond. So please call us.
Great. And as an acting, practicing child psychologist, you mentioned them earlier. How are the kids doing?
You know, I would say kids and their parents are all, like all of us, are all struggling with the anxiety related to everything that's happening in the world right now. But as we're able to model good self-care, structure their time, help them connect, and help them see that things will get better, kids do okay. And by the way, we also feel the same way if we do that for ourselves. So they're out there and we're trying to support them, but people can do a lot for their kids by doing those simple things.
Right, terrific. And really keep a lookout for our friends, family, neighbors, etc. So once again, for more information, the website is covidsupport.org, and you can actually talk to a counselor weekdays from 8 to 8, that's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at 211 and choose option 2. Kath Burns of COVID Support VT, thank you so much for helping us understand our mental health issues and letting us know that we aren't all losing it while we're losing it, that we're okay if we take care of ourselves and each other.
Yes, that's right. Thanks so much for having me, Fran, and for making time to talk about this important issue.
You bet. Kath Burns, thank you very much. And thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.